What if I told you that one of the most powerful things you could do to protect your memory as you age has nothing to do with crosswords, brain games, or supplements, and everything to do with your ears? It sounds almost too strange to be true, but the connection between hearing loss and memory loss is one of the most important discoveries in brain health research, and most people have never heard a word about it. Here's the headline, and it's a big one. Researchers studying how to reduce the risk of dementia have identified hearing loss as one of the single largest risk factors we can actually do something about, particularly in midlife and beyond. That's not a small finding. It means that something many people quietly ignore, struggling to hear, may be quietly affecting the brain. And the flip side is full of hope, because addressing it may be one of the most controllable ways to protect your mind. We went deep into this research, and today I'm going to explain the hidden link between hearing and memory, the three ways losing your hearing may affect your brain, and the encouraging evidence about what helps. This is empowering information, and I want you to have it. So stay with me to the end, because I'll share what a major recent study found when older adults at higher risk actually treated their hearing loss. The result genuinely surprised researchers, and it might change how you think about that hearing test you've been putting off. Let me start with the big picture, because it reframes everything. For a long time, people thought of hearing as a simple matter of the ears, separate from the brain. But hearing is really a brain activity. Your ears collect sound, but your brain is what turns that sound into meaning, into words, music, and understanding. So think of your hearing and your brain as deep partners in constant conversation. When that flow of sound into the brain stays rich and clear, the brain is well fed and well exercised. But when hearing fades and the input dwindles, the brain is affected in ways that go far beyond simply missing a word here and there. Let me show you the three ways. Quick pause. If this is opening your eyes, tap that like button. It helps this important message reach more adults over 50 who need to hear it. And if you've been putting off a hearing test, keep that in the back of your mind as we go. All right, let's get into it. The first way hearing loss may affect the brain is through sheer mental strain. We'll call it the overworked brain. When you can't hear clearly, your brain has to work much harder to decode muffled, incomplete sound, straining to fill in the gaps and guess at what was said. That takes enormous mental effort. In plain terms, so much of the brain's energy gets spent just trying to hear that less is left over for remembering and thinking. Imagine trying to do math while the radio plays static. That's the daily load an unaddressed hearing loss can place on the brain. Over time, that constant strain may take a toll. Now, the second way is about what happens when the brain goes hungry for input. We'll call it the quieting brain. Your brain thrives on stimulation, and rich sound is a major source of it. When hearing fades, the parts of the brain that process sound and the networks connected to them receive far less input, and the brain follows a use it or lose it rule. In plain terms, when the flow of sound dries up, the brain regions that depend on it can weaken from lack of use. Researchers have observed that untreated hearing loss is associated with changes in the brain over time, which is part of why keeping sound flowing in seems to matter so much. Stay with me, because the third way is one we all understand in our hearts. We'll call it the slow retreat. When hearing becomes a struggle, conversations turn exhausting and even embarrassing. So very naturally, people begin to pull back, declining the dinner invitation, staying quiet at the family gathering, withdrawing from the world. And social connection, as we've discussed, is powerful nourishment for the brain. In plain terms, hearing loss can quietly isolate you, and isolation starves the brain of the human connection it needs to stay sharp. This may be one of the most damaging effects of all, and one of the saddest, because it's so preventable. So let's bring it together. Hearing loss may affect the brain by overworking it with the strain to hear, by quieting the brain regions that depend on sound, and by pulling you into social retreat and isolation. Three pathways, all pointing to the same conclusion, that protecting your hearing may help protect your mind. Now, here's that recent study I promised, and it's genuinely encouraging. Researchers ran a large trial in which older adults were given hearing treatment, and among those at higher risk for cognitive decline, treating their hearing loss appeared to slow that decline meaningfully over the following years, compared to those who didn't get the treatment. Let me be careful and honest here. Science is still working this out, and addressing hearing is not a guaranteed shield against dementia. But the evidence increasingly suggests that caring for your hearing is one of the most concrete, hopeful things you can do for your long-term brain health. In plain terms, this is one risk factor you can actually act on, starting now. So here's the empowering takeaway and the action that flows from it. Get your hearing tested, even if you think it's fine, because hearing loss creeps in so gradually that most people don't notice how much they've lost. If you're told you'd benefit from hearing aids or other treatment, take it seriously, not just for your ears, but for your brain and your connection to the people you love. And stay socially engaged. Keep saying yes to the conversations, the gatherings, the calls. Of everything we've ever covered for brain health, this may be one of the most actionable of all, and it starts with a simple test. Now, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, when did you last have your hearing checked? And have you noticed yourself asking people to repeat themselves or turning the television up louder? Be honest, no judgment here, because your answer might be the nudge someone else reading needs to book that test. We read every comment here at Build After 50, and your stories often shape our next videos. And before you go, if this gave you something to act on, the next video you should watch is right here. It's our deep dive into 6 everyday habits that quietly affect your brain, and it pairs perfectly with what we covered today. If you're new here, Build After 50 publishes research-based health videos every week, made specifically for adults over 50 who want to stay sharp, connected, and independent. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so the next one finds you. One important note before we close. Everything we share here at Build After 50 is for educational purposes only. It's grounded in research, but it is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Reducing risk is not the same as a guarantee, and brain and hearing health are personal. So please take any concerns to your doctor or a hearing professional. They know your situation better than any video ever could. Here's the thought I'll leave you with. The sounds of your life, a loved one's voice, laughter across the table, a favorite song, aren't just precious in themselves. They may be helping to keep your mind strong. So protect your hearing, stay in the conversation, and keep your brain well-fed for the years ahead. Aging well isn't luck. It's the small, smart things you do every day. This is Build After 50. Keep building.